you're not aware of, the surge, or you're not aware of, this particular segment that we run. So Surge is a political platform that holds discussions like this across different social media platforms, and we are always engaging political stakeholders in Nigeria, and engaging them on several different topics pertaining to the situation in the country, and also how to improve the situation. This evening, we're joined by none other than Chief Osita Chidoka. Chief, it's customary for me to always ask our guests to tell us and tell those that don't know them a little bit about who they are. So I'll call on you to do that, and then we can begin.
Sadly, I leave that job to the person who invites me to talk, to tell the people who he wants to talk to. I find it odd when people invite me to talk and then asking me to introduce myself. So go ahead and tell them what you know of me.
So, Chief, why we do that is that I think these formal introductions, they tend to be quite sort of, dated, and we always like to hear from the horse's mouth. So all our guests, we ask this, we haven't just singled you out. We ask all our guests to do this.
This is one guest that won't do it. So move on with the interview. This is one guest that won't do it.
Okay.
So you move on with the interview.
Okay. So, Chief, I mean, just to be clear, I think I sense a little bit of a sort of, I'm not sure if there's some type of friction here, but for avoidance of that, from my side, there was no kind of ill sort of energy behind the question. It's just
there is no friction. Is a Nigerian media misbehavior, in my view, that you invite a guest, you book a time for him, you advertise the call, and then you turn around and ask the person, I've been on CNN, I've been on BBC. They tell you who they want to talk to. They don't ask the person to introduce themselves on air. They will tell the public, this is who we brought to you, and this is why we brought him. So it's not your fault. It's a Nigerian media thing. It's a certain laziness with Nigerian media to do their background and do their work. So they turn the work over to me. And most times I just politely say, no, you invited me, I didn't ask to come. So if I ask to come, then I will explain myself. So it has nothing to do with you. There's no negative energy here. It's just my principled insistence that the media should do their work. I was a journalist at a point in my life, so I always insist the media should do their work, not the other way around. Don't outsource it to me.
Okay, interesting. Well, look, I mean, for avoidance of doubt, we've had several guests, and many of them have obliged without even sort of, thinking twice. But I guess in your case, you prefer to do it differently, which is absolutely fine. So look, Chief, the topic that we're discussing today is nation before politics. Typically, how we run the show is that we speak to you about the topic. You share your opinion on the topic. We then, invite members of the audience to come in and participate. They can share their own opinions, or they can ask you questions. After which we look to close the show. Hopefully, we can cover all of that in the next sort of hour to 90 minutes, and we can wrap up. So let's begin.
I'm ready.
Let me just ask you to give us your general insight and thoughts around the economic and the governance model that we currently have. Where you think it's working and where you think it's not working, and what your particular position is on this.
Well, as you know, I run a think tank in Abuja, and our job is governance research and offering solutions to governance problems. And that means that I regularly confront the issues of the Nigerian state, its capacities and its failures. So the first thing I want to say is that it's been 60 years since our independence, 66 years now. And our problem is worsening as we progress. Our challenges are worsening. They are not getting better. And the question is, what is going wrong? So if we look at it in the last 1 year or 3 years, we may be missing the issue. Even if we look at it in the last 20 years of our democracy, 27 years now, we may still be missing the bigger picture. The big picture is that all over Africa, sub-Saharan Africa has been underperforming. The latest being South Africa, after the whites handed over to the popular ANC. South Africa is now underperforming. So there is a deeper governance issue in Nigeria. And at the Athena Center, we confront those issues, not from a government perspective, looking at it as just the government in power, but we look at it from the perspective of what are the failure points. So I want to tell you two things that we have figured out. Number one is that Nigeria grew after the Civil War. Just before the Civil War, we had 3 regions. And then in 1964, 63, we created one more region, the Midwestern region. So we had 4 regions as at 1966. By 1967, we had 12 states. And that 12 states meant that the public service that managed 4 regions, suddenly had to be created, 3 times. So people that were assistant directors, deputy directors, people that were chiefs in the, say, Eastern Regional Civil Service, went back to the Cross River states, the Rivers and Cross River states, and became permanent secretaries overnight. People that were in Northern region were suddenly divided into 6 states. One region now gave birth to 6 civil service. As if that was not enough, we moved from 1970, after the war, to 1976, 75 thereabout, we moved to 19 states. Then we continued to 21, to 20, to 30, and then to 36 states. So the first challenge is that we duplicated our bureaucracies without training the people to manage those bureaucracies. While we were creating these 36 states, we also created 774 local governments. So suddenly, the manpower to run this humongous bureaucracy just didn't exist. As at the 1970s, down to the 80s. So some local governments till date have not been able to work like a local government. The basic functions of local government, street naming, debt registry, birth and death registry, sanitation, markets, no local government is capable of doing it in Nigeria today. Then you move on to the states, and you will see that people that were assistant directors in Anambra State went off to Enugu State and became, people that were level 13 went off to Enugu State and became level 16. Then they went off to Ebonyi State and became permanent secretaries. And the same thing happened in the local government. So we haven't even confronted one serious factor, that we created a governance infrastructure that we didn't have the manpower to man. So I will give an example with something I'm very familiar with, which is my job as Co-Marshal of the Federal Road Safety. If you go by the issue of vehicle registration, drivers, VIOs, that's what they are called, vehicle inspectors. They are the ones that do driver training, driver testing to issue you a driver's license. They existed in all the regions, but since the state creation continued going on, There are many states in Nigeria that do not have driving field where you can trace the driver. They do not have VIOs. As at the time I left as Corps Marshal in 2014, Bayelsa State did not have VIOs. They create the offices, but there is really nobody trained to be a vehicle inspection officers. So the vehicles in Nigeria grew, but there were no increased manpower to do driver testing and vehicle testing. So I can assume that anybody that is under 40 here that learned to drive never really went through any driver testing. It was just if a driving school certifies you, or anybody, you go into the VIO, very many of them do not even have the capacity to test you. So you can see that we have a structural governance challenge. That is why the state governments take over the monies of the local governments. That is why we sit today in Nigeria. During the colonial rule, all our state capitals had pipe-borne water. Today, with the absence of our colonial rule, 90%, 60% of Nigeria, or maybe 70% of the households in Nigeria do not have access to pipe-borne water. This was a basic function the colonial masters delivered seamlessly. So I'm sure if you take an inventory of government houses in Nigeria, maybe 80 to 90% of the governors take their bath every morning with boreholes, because the failure of the public service has rendered it difficult for us to provide basic services. Therefore, what we now have is the privatization of governance. So if you want water, you drill a borehole. If your child cannot go to the public school, which hasn't been built in many states in many years, no new schools have been built. As new neighborhoods come, no new schools are added. As no new primary schools are added, so the children move to the private schools. So your child is in a private school, your children, you go to private hospital, you use private water, you generate private power. So at the end of the day, there is very little the local government does for you. If you want certificate of origin from a local government, you just send somebody to your local government and they will get it for you, because there is no record. The local governments have no capacity anymore to do the functions of local governments across the world. Nowhere in the world does a state government manage primary schools. It's managed by local governments. So they know the number of students in a school, they project their population growth, they bring out land for future schools, and they bring out options, how to train teachers or attract teachers to make sure that their schools keep developing. So I've painted this picture just to show you that our problems are not to be looked at in the time horizon of the last 3 years, the last 5 years. We have a deeper problem that will require a new type of leadership and a new type of thinking to solve the problem of a governance infrastructure that is larger than the capacity to manage it.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. And it brings me actually onto my next question, because as you're talking,
if you're talking, we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can anybody hear
Yeah.
me? Okay, I think it might be on his side. Bomat, can you check if you can hear you?
If you're talking, we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, sir? Let me reach him on the back end.
Okay, all right. So look, whilst we wait to reconnect with our guests, let me just remind everybody about the topic again. This evening, essentially, we're looking at the issue of governance and leadership in Nigeria. Okay, specifically, we're talking about how do we rethink Nigeria's economic.
Your voice comes out and off.
Really, I think it might.
It's from your end. Sorry, Solomon, go ahead.
So Baron, can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear. I can hear you.
Okay, so my voice is clear. Yeah. Okay, fine. So JP, you can hear me too, yeah?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think it's from
If anybody is hearing us. Just know that we can't hear you.
Okay, I think it's on his end. Hopefully Boma can reach him. Okay, I can see also in the comments that the listeners can hear me and can hear us. So I think it might be from his end. Again, whilst we're waiting for him to come back, let me remind everybody of the topic. Okay, we have you back. Can you hear me now? Are you able to hear me? Am I audible on your end? Okay.
Solomon, let him leave and join back again. Hold on.
All right, fine. So once again, guys, the topic is on nation before politics. Specifically, we're discussing governance and leadership in Nigeria. As if we are not all bored of this topic by now.
Okay,
We must discuss it.
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, good.
So look, I heard everything you said, and thank you for sharing those. Thank you for sharing those insights. I think I completely agree with you in terms of those that are over 40. I think that I share those sentiments with you as well. Now, Nigeria we've had military leaders, we've had technocrats like yourself, businessmen, we've had academics, we've had career politicians in power. We've had all of this, yet the same problems. We see the same problems across that diverse group that I've just mentioned. So the question then becomes, is the problem leadership or is it institutions?
A combination of both. Once you haven't diagnosed the problem well, you'll be treating the wrong things. Because we fundamentally don't understand that you cannot govern what you don't know. That's why our security situation has deepened and worsened. You cannot govern what you don't know. So you need to know the citizens. You need to know their income levels. You need to make them pay taxes. You need to make them comply. So once the base is not built correctly, the challenge is that every solution you are applying cannot work because you don't know the scale of the problem you are dealing with. So let us take again, I use the issue of schools again. We are 1.8 million people take JAM annually. But there are about almost 30 million people in primary school. So what happens between primary school and secondary school up to the point we take JAM? Where do these students disappear to? So we need to give students unique numbers from primary school. We need to track how many students do we have in primary one. So let us assume, and I'm not using correct data. Let's assume that 2 million students register in primary one in 2020, in 2010. We're in 2016 or 2008. So they've turned 17 and they're going to university. Sorry, I want to use the argument, let's say 6 million people came in or 5 million came into primary one. Now we get to second time to write JAM 16 years later. Only 800,000 are fresh applicants from schools. So what happened to, let's say, of the 2 million people that entered, where are 1.2 million people? We need to account for them. Because if we don't account for them, then our policies, our decisions about how to make education work, how to manage society, how to manage criminality, how to deal with trade, how to deal with those who are not educated, those policies cannot work. Because we should have been able to say, of the 2 million that entered primary school in 2009, after primary school, about 600,000 dropped off. 200,000 women, 100,000 men, thereabouts, and they married, they went into trade or something. And about, 5% died in the course of that. Then in secondary school, the people that registered for secondary school were, 1.4 million. But by end of JSS3, they are now 800,000. Where are the balance? So a country that cannot account for its balance, when you bring technocrats, when you bring military people, we will all be diagnosing the wrong problem. For instance, nobody in this country has bothered that consistently over the past 10 years, the average score in JAMB has been less than 150. The average score. That is to say that people have not been passing JAMB. So what should any normal country do? We will have been able to go back into the data and find out all those that scored 200 and above, where are they? Who are they? Oh, they came from private schools, or they came from public schools, or they came from urban schools, or they came from this type of states. Who are those that scored 150 and below? Oh, they came from rural schools. They came from schools that had no teachers. They came from this type of schools. Doesn't that tell us how we are going to go back downstream and fix the problem of lack of education, lack of teachers, lack of training? By now, the conversation in Nigeria will be discussing how do we make these students get access to teachers? How do we pay teachers to go to the rural areas and things like that? I don't know if this makes sense to you. So when you come and start treating the problem of admission to university, let's lower the JAMB score. Every year we've lowered the JAMB score. We've gone from 200 to 180 to 160. Now we have gone to 150 or even going to 140. Now it's 100 for polytechnics. But that doesn't solve the problem. Why are majority of students scoring in the bell curve? We should have at least more than 60% scoring above 200. We probably will percent above 300 will probably be like 5%. But the bell curve in Nigeria is that the bulk of the students are scoring less than 150. So how do we fix a problem we don't know the problem? We don't understand. I'm sorry I'm deviating. Nigerians like to talk about economy, the challenges today and all of that. But I'm saying until we go back to the fundamentals, we will not understand the problem we're seeing are just symptoms of a deeper state failure.
But Chief, you've been part of government.
Failure. Yes.
Chief, can you hear me?
Yes.
You've been part of government.
Yes,
you've advised government. Okay. You've participated in politics. Yes. Why should young Nigerians believe those like you, the political class? Yeah. Why should they believe you genuinely want change in the current system when you're one of the people that they say are benefited from the system? But now you're here. You're saying Nigerians. I presume you're counting yourself as part of those Nigerians, right? Why should they believe what you're saying now? Because they see you as part of the problem.
That's fantastic. I like that we're finding the problem. But I'm here talking about the solution. So I'm hoping that some young people will sit down and do this analysis and look for power, because biology will soon take care of a whole generation of politicians. Biology will soon take care of us. So I'm hoping that the young people understand that applying the same solutions we apply to the problem will not solve it. So that we need to have a different way of thinking about it. So when I see them on social media and I'm looking at this conversation we're having now, if I decide to start talking about who is a thief in Nigeria, maybe 1 million people will join us in the conversation. But if we start talking about how do we apply solutions that can fundamentally alter and make us like the societies we all like. Do you know that in Saudi Arabia, the most important agency in Saudi Arabia is the Postal Service? That is the agency that gives you your national identity. That is the agency that tracks where you are. That is the agency that knows which house you live in. Now, we have people that kidnapped students in Oyo. Our soldiers did a yeoman's job. Our security men, God bless their souls, went and rescued the students. As we speak, we have not heard the names of those who they killed in the process, who were those that kidnapped. Because you see, if we know their names and know where they live, then we that are their neighbors can begin to say, they're not over. This person is a close friend of this person. This person does this. We will begin to know in the neighborhoods who are the likely criminals who are doing kidnapping. But every day we hear about kidnapping, we hear about those killed, but we don't hear their names. We don't know the schools they attended. We don't know the name of their parents. So the parents are all living in what I will call anonymity. So when their children are criminals, they do not do anything about it because nobody will know. Even if their child is arrested, people will not know. But if everybody knows that this is the Osita's son that was arrested, then my neighbors will even begin to say, these are the other boys that are his friends. So I am saying that finding the solution to a problem is a more intricate and difficult thing than finding who to blame. Because we can keep sharing the blame all year round, but while we're sharing the blame, Dubai has gone from a desert to a successful country where every Nigerian wants to go for holidays. In the process of while we're discussing these matters, Rwanda has become a destination for Nigerians.
I was going to say that to you. I was going to say that.
Rwanda,
I was going to say that to you.
Uganda, our governors were packed from Nigeria by UNDP and taken to Rwanda. They were all there posting pictures of themselves in Rwanda. And none of them saw the joke on us that there was no state in Nigeria where they could be taken to be shown what good governance means. So,
Chief, can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, again, I have to agree. I have to agree with your general sort of sentiment on that. Although I will go back to say that Nigerians will see you as part of that political class. So I think they may be a little bit, sort of, curious as to why you maybe are framing it in the sense of you're someone who's on the outside. I think Nigerians might see you as on the inside. But again, that's a matter of opinion. In terms of the current administration, what is the single strongest criticism you would make of Tinubu's economic strategy?
Mr. Solomon, can I piggyback on what the question you asked as well, please?
Yes, please.
Sorry, who's that?
It's Divine. Can I piggyback on the question you just asked? Can I just piggyback on it?
Sure. Normally I don't allow it, but on this occasion, why not? Go ahead.
Okay. So he said something about the blaming and a solution will be difficult. So why as somebody that's been in government, you've been in those positions, why do you think the solutions to all these things happening, especially when it comes to education, why is it difficult? Why is the solution difficult?
That's a very good question. That's a very, very good question. Why is it difficult? And I can tell you a few things why it's difficult. If I say these kind of things I'm saying on the campaign trail, I will not win any election. I will not win to be a councillor. If I go out now and promise that once I go in, I will remove school fees. Nigerian students are paying more than any other students in the world. We will remove it. I will get all the votes. There is no incentive for good behavior. So the incentive for long-term thinking is not available in 4 years governance period. So I will give you an example. I like to fundamentally solve problems. So when I became Corps Marshal, I said, what is the problem in Nigeria? Driver's license process is faulty. So anybody can get a driver's license. And if we arrest him for an offense, he can go back and get another one. There is no biometric system behind it. There is no database behind it. So I then said, we will cancel all driver's license and build a biometric system that allows you to put your 10 fingerprints, and then it will give you a temporary license while we check the system, whether you have any previous license before we issue you the final one. We studied around the world. We hired PwC. We went around the world, looked at solutions that were available as at 2009, as at 2008. That was a time when there was no data as you have it today. We couldn't have this type of call in 2008. So we then invested in VSATs. We got 450 VSATs. We got a new license system and the rest of the country. And then we said, what of the vehicles? If we give you a license and we don't know who the owners of the vehicles are, then that's a problem. So we need to tie the license to the vehicle. The same year I was doing that in FRSC, Egypt was doing the same thing in Egypt. They said their vehicle numbering system was messed up, so they created a new one. So I created a new one. What did everybody see? Everybody said it was a money-making business. National Assembly came fighting. Everybody came fighting that they love the people better than I do. Because the solution we are trying to apply was going to have a cutoff date. You couldn't have the two systems working parallel. We need to stop it. Anyway, shortly after, Nigerians went abroad with their new driver's license and they could rent a car with it. Italian police came to Nigeria and said, if you have the new Nigerian driver's license, you don't need to go back for a retraining because we can verify it against a database. So today, when you hold that new Nigerian driver's license anywhere in the world, you can exchange it. We signed license exchange agreement with most European countries and Asian countries. The reason they can now trust the document because it has a biometric database behind it. Now, none of my predecessors will have gone through the hell I went through. Because even the people that were going to benefit from it, all they saw was that, oh, this is a money-making gambit. How that was a money-making gambit was a big shock to me because it is the state governments that issue driver's license. It is the state governments that issue number plates. Our job in FRSC is to produce it and we do the interconnection between the states. Nobody knew that. All they could see was that, oh, Osita will print new driver's license 1 million times 6,000, 3,000 naira. That would be a lot of money for him. So many people will not take that risk, but I took the risk because I know, I know that the system was going to benefit Nigeria in the long run. So being able to change a system requires you to go against so many forces, to go against entrenched system. At that time, FRSC staff were making money like bandits because all you need is send them 3,000. They had a plant in Lagos where they printed their own driver's license. All that business died overnight when we introduced the biometric system. So it's now something that we're all holding with pride. But everybody didn't realize it was done at the expense of my reputation at the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
to be honest,
change is not easy.
yeah, Chief, I think I will commend you. I will commend you because I think you did a good job with that. Because even at the time, I think were you not the youngest? I think you were 35 when you came.
Yes, I was.
So I think if I look at it from that perspective, I think we have to commend you for the job you did because I think if we look back now, we can see that perhaps. If that approach was taken with some other agencies, then people would still be seeing benefit today. So, I think on that note, I can certainly commend you. But let's come back to the question in terms of what you think about the current administration's economic strategy. Okay, so what is your single strongest criticism of the current administration's economic strategy?
So I basically agree with certain policies of this government in terms of fuel subsidy removal, foreign exchange, devaluation of the naira, floating the rate, and allowing it to find its level more or less. But I think that this is the challenge in Nigeria. This is not the first time we have done this before. We have done this with Babangida administration when we did SAP. And something happened during SAP. Nigerians rioted. There were many challenges because you see, macroeconomic stability normally comes at the expense of the poor people. So I thought, and I had written about this many times, I thought that this government will have gone to look for people like Kalu Idikakalu, look for people like Chuokongu, Olufalaye, and say, what did you people, what will you have done differently if you were doing these policies today? What we will have done differently is that the masses are going to bear the crunch of this. The time it takes for macroeconomic stability to percolate to the people in the downstream is such a long time that in the long run, we're all dead. So the government was forced at some point to go and import rice, which is why prices of rice came down from 100,000 to 60-something thousand. And Nigerians breathed a sigh of relief. But then that was at the cost of killing the Nigerian local rice industry. Our rice industry is almost dead. So two things that I feel strongly about is that the government did not think about the impact of its policies on poor Nigerians. Why would you introduce a stamp duty tax on any transfer above 10,000 naira? Why would you allow the banking industry to keep charging 53 naira on every transaction that you do across transfers when that online transfer is what the government has been trying to promote? So I wrote and I said, listen, 53 naira in the bank that they're taking from the banks. 4 banks collected 180 billion naira as fees from interbank transfers. I said that is money from the pocket of ordinary Nigerians. Because at 10,000 naira, once you transfer more than 10,000, you pay 53 naira to the banks plus VAT, you pay 50 naira to the government as stamp duty tax. So you're paying 103 naira to 10,000 naira. Meanwhile, the person transferring 10 million naira is paying 103 naira. So at the end of the day, the poor people have a disproportionate share of this. You can't be promoting financial inclusion and be promoting collection of fees. So why don't we think of government policies as looking at who are the people that will suffer from these policies that we have? How can we ameliorate their suffering? This is one country where donations, charity is not tax deductible. Knowing that the middle class in Nigeria is bearing the burden of supporting their children, the children of their drivers, the families and co. I thought that this government will have said anybody earning between anybody in Nigeria, depending on salary grades, a certain percentage of your taxable income can be used for charity. Donate to churches or whatever, to non-profits, and you can deduct it from your tax. Or even to your village associations, to your age grades. Because we're a country where people are supporting one another every day. So I think that what challenge we have today is that the government has gotten right a macroeconomic stability, and the evidence is here with us. 2024, all the companies went into losses, deep losses. MTN lost almost their share capital. By 2025, 10 Nigerian companies made about 7.6 trillion naira profit, more than the federal government's non-oil revenue of 7.2 trillion naira. So the evidence of a working macroeconomic stability, but it has come at the expense of the poor. And I think that that's the challenge. The government are not thinking about the impact of its decisions on poor Nigerians. They're not thinking about it deeply. It's not going to be a hope event. It's not going to be a money sharing event. It's not going to be a kulikuli and akara event. It has to be a conscious, deliberate policy to impact on the lives of people, free education, transport fares that are cheaper, and all of that, to ameliorate their spend on their daily basis.
So I think you've answered actually the other question I was going to ask you. You've already answered it in this one. So it seems as though you're in agreement with some of the macroeconomic policies, but you think they could have done a better job in terms of understanding the detail on impact on actual citizens that are the worst affected in terms of demographic, right? It seems as though you're saying we could have done a better job there. So let me move on to my next question, which is around Peter Obi. So Peter Obi has become a symbol of when Nigerians talk about competent governance, they often refer to Peter Obi, especially young Nigerians. Okay, do you think this admiration of him is justified, or do you think it's become a political myth?
I don't think any. Every politician is entitled to his supporters. And I think that the P2B supporters are clearly in their right and in their capacity to support him, to mythologize him. Awolowo had the same kind of followership. Buhari had the same kind of followership. P2B is entitled to it. And I don't think it's something anybody should question or debate about its validity. Until he becomes a president, then we can question his capacity to rule. Before then, I believe that his followers are in their right.
What aspects of his current sort of, policy direction, because I think this time around, he's been less willing and less forthcoming about the detail, okay? But what aspect of the general sort of, direction that he wants to take do you agree or disagree with?
I don't discuss personalities in elections because I run a non-partisan.
No, I'm talking about his policy. I'm talking about his policy.
So
I'm talking about the policy for Nigeria. I'm talking about the policy for Nigeria, not personality.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. So as far as I am concerned, with every politician looking for office, and I've looked for office myself, whatever you say about how you want to go, your enemies can say they are not good enough. Your friends will say they are good enough. So it's a matter of on which side you stand. Once you get into government, then we can evaluate the strength of your policies. The idea that people don't vote for people so much because of policy, because Buhari did not say anything when he used to get 11 million votes in this country. He never said anything. Till he became president, nobody knew his opinion on anything, but people trusted him. They believed in him. They believed he was a man of integrity. He lived a simple life, and he was going to be a great president, whatever that meant to his followers. So what I want to say is that whatever P2B says, Atiku says, Kwankwanso says, or whoever is running, for me, you can always hire consultants to say them. What is important is, do people trust you with their lives? That's what people do when they vote. They don't vote because of what you said or did not say. They are voting because they believe that their lives are safe with you. And I believe that on that count, he has made his mark on many people, that they believe him, that their life will be safe with him. Because whatever any politician says now, I mean, AI can write it for you, consultants can write it for you. It doesn't really matter to me what people are saying.
To remind myself that I'm speaking to a technocrat, so I was expecting a political answer, but I got an even better one. But let's move on to what the sentiment of young Nigerians. Okay, a lot of them that I'm speaking to, they basically are saying that democracy has failed them. What evidence would you offer to prove otherwise?
Well, democracy has failed Nigeria as a whole. If you look at it in broad terms about our direction as a country, there is increasing distrust of the judiciary. There is a rising insecurity in Nigeria, higher than we have ever known. There is widening poverty. There is growth in other areas, but we can also point to our failures. But in terms of the democratic decision on how to make our choices, the democratic process, I think this is still our best bet. And we've had, in these 6 election cycles, it's becoming clearer how Nigerians vote and how we vote and why we vote. So what is important now is that young Nigerians must realize that the quality of leadership that can emerge from a democratic process is a function of how we vote. We have made tremendous progress from 1999. 2003 was a low watermark. 2007 was so low that even the man who was elected said, the election that brought me to power is flawed. That was President Yaradua. And then he set in motion the Justice Uwais Commission that led to, what's his name, the former INEC chairman becoming chairman. That was the professor that became chairman of INEC, who was a member of the Uwais Commission. He led us to the various innovations we've had in elections, up to the point now where we have the beavers. So now we're no more discussing ballot box snatching. We're no more discussing people writing just any result. We're now discussing, does the beavers work? Is the IREV open? Do they upload the results? So we at the Athena Center, we track INEC, we look at the results that they upload on the IREV. Last election in Ekiti, we had 200 people monitoring the IREV, and we were tracking the results. So by 7 p.m., we had the results already coming out from Ekiti. So, but we didn't stop at that. We have written INEC and said, please, can you give us a freedom of information request? We want the BVAS data. We want the Form EC8B, Form EC8C. We've done this now for 6 election cycles. We did it in Kogi. We did it in Bayelsa, in Anambra. So these 7 elections, and we have learned something. 80% of the polling units, the results that were cast % of the polling units, and it differs. In some states it's about 17, in some states about 13. And these are usually in the local government of the incumbent governors. They tamper with the results. In the case of Imo, the governor added about 100 and something thousand votes from 3 local governments. In Kogi, they added over 200,000 votes from 3 local governments. So we were able to use the INEC data to show that this is the problem. Now, we brought out that information by the time the government, they were in the Supreme Court. But I'm hoping that with the help of both more funding on our part and deploying of more people to track the IREV and go, and then with AI supporting our analytics, we are going to be able to produce these results weeks after the election, so that those going to court can actually point to specific polling units where the election does not tally with the final outcome. So many governors and many politicians don't like me at the moment, because that result is always, we bring it out, we share it to the public, but it used to come out late. So we are hoping that going forward, it will come out faster. That as people are going to court in Ekiti now, we're already hoping, INEC has already responded to us. We're getting the BVAS maybe this week, and we're getting the EC8A and B this week. So once we get it, by next week, we will be able to tell you polling unit by polling unit where the results were tampered with. Yeah. Either by overvoting or undervoting. So Nigerians should trust this process and try very much. The more people come out, the less it is likely to rig an election. So people say to me, votes don't count. And my answer is always, if it doesn't count, why are politicians buying it? Yeah. In Ekiti, they were paying 15,000. They were paying 10,000 for votes. Why were they paying if it doesn't count? Exactly. So it means it counts. So
I think we lead that nicely onto the next area I wanted to cover, which is corruption. Okay, so yes, we fought corruption for decades. At your time, we know what was going on then, in terms of corruption. At what point do we admit that corruption is not the real problem and it's just part of the symptom of what we see?
Well, I don't know. Corruption is still a big issue. It is an important issue. So the commissioner of police in Israel charged President Netanyahu to court for corruption. And what was the corruption? They said that in exchange for positive reporting by a media house, he gave them some preferential treatment so that they will give him positive reporting in their media house. The other one, he accepted brandy and cigars or something from some friends, and they said that was against the law. So here, corruption was not that he stole money from government. We're not discussing that. They're just saying he violated the rules. Then they asked the commissioner of police, why are you persisting on this case? I mean, it's really not that serious. And you have been focusing on this man now for over 6-7 years. You've been on this case. Every time a court says there was not enough evidence, you went back and brought more evidence. Do you know what the commissioner said? And it struck me greatly. He said, every day, under 20 children, 22, 23-year-old children in Israel go to war every day. They die fighting Hamas, fighting Hezbollah, fighting Iran. The people take risk for this country every blessed day. Mossad agents across the world doing assassination, fighting all kinds of things. If they think that some people somewhere are benefiting from the country, those children will not take that risk for the country. So I will not allow 1% corruption in Israel as Commissioner of Police, because it will affect the fundamentals of our state. These children that go out every day and die are doing it because they believe they are doing it for Israel. If they ever believe that the people at the top are benefiting, they will not do it. So do you understand why our police do not see anything wrong in collecting money from a criminal and releasing him? Because he's watching the people in the top government position living well, we are enjoying the wealth of Nigeria. Our children are not in police. Our children are not in the army. They are not in DSS. And other people's children are there. And they are seeing us building mansions in Abuja, driving a flying private jet, and you want them to go and die in the bush for Nigeria. It's not going to happen.
Chief, but look,
Chief,
but look, let's look at this from a different perspective, right? Look at China, you look at Vietnam, you look at Indonesia. All these countries developed whilst there was still corruption. In all my years in business, Chinese, I would argue, they're one of the most corrupt that I've encountered. But yet you look at what they've been able to achieve in the past 50 years. So when we now put that in the context of Nigeria's own situation, why is it that these achievements can occur in spite of the corruption, but in Nigeria's case, we use it as the reason why we can't develop?
In China, if you are caught for corruption, what happens?
It depends who, and it depends how rich they are.
No. Government officials don't depend on anything.
Government
If
officials are punished severely. No,
punished. They're not punished severely. They're killed. They just killed.
You're sentenced to death
some months ago.
Yes, that's
Yes,
that's true. Yes.
State corruption. Why China is thriving is that look. Do you understand the scale of what has happened in China? 2 regions in China, Guangzhou and Shanghai, are now $1 trillion GDP economies. It is run by an honest bureaucracy. The businessmen can be corrupt too. They can sell you things, they can cheat. If the state catches you, you're in trouble. If you are a state officer and you sell anybody, in fact, I just read now that nobody who has been accused for more than 1 billion yuan has been let off alive. You are killed. You are sentenced to death and you're executed. Because you see, state capture, when people take the money for the state and convert it to personal wealth, it's a different matter from when people are selling, in India, in China, you can get an official to do something for you for a future support. Businesses can get a permit or not get a permit, depending on which officer is there. But if you are caught in the process of doing it, that's the situation. In Nigeria, you are almost celebrated. You move from that position to the next position. You actually become president, you can become Senate president, you can become governor, the more money you acquire. And Nigerians will say things like, oh, he has the capacity. No, he doesn't have the money to run the election. So it is a different type of corruption. The corruption in Nigeria today is personalizing state wealth. That means that money that is meant for classrooms don't get to classrooms. Money that is meant for hospitals don't get to hospitals. Money that is meant for roads are not delivering the roads. That is not the case in China or Vietnam or Indonesia. And I went to school in Singapore. So I lived in Asia for a while. I can tell you that that is not their idea of corruption. No. There has been issues of grand corruption, but there are this idea that my mother reported her house help. The house help went and opened, my late mom, opened the door. Thieves came into the house. took my father and my mother. My father was in his 80s then, my mother in her 60s. They took all their rings, stole all the money in the house, and she suspected that this girl must have opened the door for them. So she took her to the police station. The police said, oh, we're arresting her. Then the following day, they called her and said, bring food for her in the police station. So she brought food. They now said that the girl said she has malaria. She said, okay, let's buy malaria medicine. They said, no, that you can't buy malaria medicine. You have to give us 10,000 naira to buy malaria medicine. Malaria medicine is 500 naira. Why do you need 10,000? They say it's their own drugs in the police. So she was feeding the girl in the police, paying for the police officer who comes to do investigation, who goes to the girl's house and and then paying for the food, paying for the drugs. After about 1 week, she's like, okay, I'm the double loser here. Guess what she then found out? The girl never slept in the police station any night. Every night, one of the police officers took the lady and put her in a hotel and was sleeping with the girl. This is the police. It is not, this is the person that you ran to for the safety of your life. What then did the police tell her? You know, madam, thank God has blessed you. You don't have to fight all these things. Just let her, you know, we've looked at this matter. God has blessed you. Your son is this. Your son is that. Please, where in the world does the police do that?
I agree. I mean, I guess the point I was making is that, look, and I think some of the officials that they do apprehend for corruption, it's not that they kill all of them, because the question then was going to be,
no,
okay,
at a certain amount. I said that about above 1 billion yuan.
Granted, granted, right?
Yes.
So the question is, I guess, is what do we take from that in terms of in the Nigerian context, right? And I guess what you're saying is that we need to have a system that holds government officials accountable to a higher degree than we currently have, right?
Yes.
And there needs
not the place to make money.
And there needs to be a way to enforce that.
It's not the place to make money.
Right. So the question is, how do we enforce that in a country like Nigeria with the system that we have? Because China operates in a completely different way, which is why they can have the enforcement that they do, right? And in Nigeria, we have a completely different, constitution. So therefore, within that landscape that we have in Nigeria, what levers do we have that can actually, achieve the same outcome? Because in my opinion, there are none. But I'll be interested to hear from you.
I don't know. Like you, I'm a bit jaded. So I'm hoping that younger people like you are going to think out innovative systems. But what I will do today, and which I did at the Federal Road Safety, I introduced what I call radical transparency. We are one of the first agencies that remitted all the money we got back to the Federation account. All the money we got from fines, collection, everything, I said there should be no checking account. All the accounts, as the money come into that, we send it to the Federation account. So the National Assembly now wanted to punish me and went to check whether we send our money to the Federation account. In their checking, they found out that myself and Emir Sanusi, who was then Central Bank Governor, and one other agency, we were three, were the only ones that did 100% remittance to government. So they gave us an award. From trying to bring me for public execution, they ended up giving us an award. And what that meant for us was that we built a system that made it possible for us to become ISO 9001 certified. FRSC is the first law enforcement agency in Africa to get ISO 9001 certification. It means that all our systems and processes are documented. So what did that do for us? The World Bank had a $10 million project with us. The money was spent in full, including staff going to California Highway Patrol to spend 1 month. About 100 FRSC staff went to California. The World Bank paid for it. We bought heavy-duty tow trucks, we bought motorbikes, we trained officers and everything. And the World Bank wrote us a letter that this is one of their most seamless procurement they've done in Nigeria without any controversy. Because I didn't care who the contractors were. I just wanted the end products, which is the services. So when I became the Minister of Aviation, the World Bank came back to aviation and said to me, we had a $7.5 million we brought for an Abuja airport project, but the procurement and issues stalled and we withheld the money. Now that you are here, the money is back on the table. Just do with it as you please. So this is what happens to Nigeria. Our reputation in the world is gone down. When our leaders don't understand, I say, how don't we feel embarrassed when a Modi of India comes out? Modi is the president of India. He literally owns India today. But as of today, Modi is the poorest president in the world. Same thing with Lula in Brazil. Same thing with the Mexico president. You don't look for power, looking for money. I can't understand why Nigerian leaders haven't understood it. That Dangote should be the richest man in Nigeria. That's what they're for. Tony Elumelu, they should be that.
Yeah.
But the leader of a country, it is that reputation that impacts the behavior of everybody in the country. So when people tell me that FRSC officers take bribe more than during my days, I say, well, the country has also changed. So don't blame them. The country has changed. They have, they have their own bills to pay. Everybody is on the take. You can't expect them to live different from the rest of the country. So I think that younger people like you should help us think out, on how we can really fight corruption.
Chief, that one is a whole nother topic because they'll bring it back to people of your generation that created the problem that we're dealing with now. But let's move on to. I'm going to open up the floor now shortly, but two more points I want to cover before I do that. The first is ethnicity. So I was a bit disappointed in the last election because I thought that some politicians, they exploited this. And it was quite disappointing to witness. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think that some of these politicians are genuinely tribal, or do you think they're just using it as a form of political exploitation to basically get into office?
It's both. Some people are tribal. Some people are using it to get to office. But what is important about tribalism and about the use of tribalism in politics is that when people are tribal, they're saying, you are one of us, you are our kind. We don't know the other person. He is not like us. I don't know if this is if you're getting this point. It's a point that I see sometimes people miss it. You see, it's until people get to the point where they feel like we're actually bound together by something. That when our national anthem says, though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand, we see that every day in individual lives. I grew up in Lagos. Some of our best friends are Yoruba people. I don't remember I'm Igbo when I'm with them. It is until we now say that this position is for, between me and you, that it is for South-South and this is for South-East. The more we push the idea of an ethnic-based inclusion and don't find other categories of inclusion, the more ethnicity will keep coming to the fore in Nigeria. Let me give you an instance. Take something like educationally disadvantaged state. So Kebbi State is educationally disadvantaged. Anambra State is educationally advantaged. Now, Osita grows up in Kebbi, goes to primary school in Kebbi, goes to secondary school in Kebbi, and takes JAMB. Meanwhile, Bawa grows up in Imo, he's from Kebbi, goes to school in Owerri, which is educationally advantaged, goes to secondary school there because his father was a policeman in Imo State, and then we take JAMB. So Osita now scores 150 in JAMB. They said, oh, Osita cannot be admitted because he is from Anambra State, from an educationally advantaged state. Osita scores, say, 200. Bawa scores 150. Oh, he will be admitted to Nsukka because he comes from an educationally disadvantaged state. Please, is that fair? What has state of origin got to do with educational disadvantage? The disadvantage is in the teaching.
Yeah, you're
It's
right.
in the lesson. It's in that the school you
But chief,
attended to.
but chief,
It's
it's a big,
educationally disadvantaged.
it's a problem that I saw a lot. Yeah, for example, like our platforms we were running back then around election time. You had the secessionists, you know, if it's not it's Yoruba Nation, you have the Igbo secessionists, and you have all these different groups, which largely, in terms of the real particular political landscape, they were not really relevant. But I think in the online community of misinformation, they were highly active, okay? And they were very divisive in terms of polarizing people. Now, I don't believe in a Nigeria that seeks to legitimize inequalities of other groups. I think we are smart enough to find solutions that can sort of benefit the entire nation rather than seek to, legitimize some type of disadvantage that we see. However, these groups exist. You know, they are ambassadors of misinformation. And what I find interesting is that some of them then sort of, they quickly switch to, and start having sort of political ambition or political interest, which then sort of, further kind of just exacerbates the confusion that we're witnessing. So my question is, what because sometimes some of the issues we see around election in terms of the voting issues, whatever, some of this is being influenced by some of these groups. So my question is that what should we be doing as Nigerians to build the bridge that moves us past our differences and helps us to focus on the real challenges rather than this kind of lazy exploitation of ethnicity?
You call it lazy exploitation, but you just heard my example. How do you think Osita will feel when that is done to him in Nigeria? He becomes a willing recruit of the secessionist angle. How do you think Bawa will feel from his own end? He begins to feel entitled. So the two of them will not be able to agree. So part of the ways to do it is that there will be a conscious policy that when these people come with their narratives, they will not find fertile grounds. Because if I'm excluded from something because of where I come from, and you got because of where you come from, nothing you explain to me will make me accept that the person pushing the evil narratives is not right. So we have seen that this pushing of narratives is across the world. We have seen white supremacists weaponize immigration in the Western world to win elections. Right-wing parties all over Europe were winning on the premise that they are not part of us. We will stop the immigration. We will send them away. And people that were white felt, yes, in my community, I don't more have a job. It's because of these black people who are ready to take smaller amounts to do the same job. So you will see that. Because if the world was fairer, if the middle class in the Western world were thriving, the messages of the right-wing people will not find a fertile ground. The world that made Obama president also increased disparity in economics that made it possible for a Trump to come. So I'm saying that in Nigeria, we cannot sit down and wish away things that are concrete and real. We need to, as a country, say, why don't we move from educationally disadvantaged states to educationally disadvantaged schools? Because if you go to Anambra, there are children who are in schools that have no roof, who have no classrooms in Omo, in certain rural parts of Anambra. You are judging the Anambra people by the Anambra diaspora, who are doing well in Lagos, Abuja, Enugu, and Port Harcourt. The people that live in Anambra, many of them are in disadvantaged schools. Meanwhile, the child of Mr. Usman, who went to University Primary School, Kaduna, Ahmadu Bello University Primary School, went to Ahmadu Bello University Secondary School, is described as educationally disadvantaged. And he's compared to be educationally disadvantaged vis-a-vis the person from Upo, community secondary school Upo in Anambra, who is said to be educationally advantaged. So I am saying that this information will always exist, but what will make it not work is a functioning society that continues to evaluate, that continues to check. At what point is a policy no more achieving its goal? At what point is it the unintended consequence? Like, I like what the government is discussing about NYSC. I have my concerns about some of the changes, but this is how we should do every policy. At least every 25 years or thereabout, we'll check again. Is this what we want?
Lay that foundation.
Yes. Yeah.
Governor first of all, and then we'll circulate the stage. Abby, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Honorable Minister, good evening. All protocol observed. It's been a while since I've seen Honorable Minister Osita Chidoka. The last time we met was probably almost 15 years ago. But I agree on what is said, that when you're a technocrat, you work. But the moment you become a politician, things fall apart. I have known Dr. Chief Osita Chidoka from the days of former, may so rest in peace, Chief Ezefe, when he was a minister before he became an Anambra governor. I have followed Osita Chidoka when he was a town planning officer before he became FRSC boss. And then he was under the likes of Permanent Secretary Ibrahim Babangida Mazu, that turned governor in Niger State. He was also a strong member, public servant in the Federal Ministry of Transport under Designing Madueke when she was Transport Minister also, before she left for petroleum. Followed Osita as well.
I was called Marshal. I was called Marshal. Transport Minister.
So you can see, I'm just reading the background for you. Also, what's the name of this woman? Madam Amuna Ali, when she was the Permanent Secretary in Ministry of Transport, the Maiduguri woman. All right, so let me ask my question. Very good, very good. So let me land now, Solomon. You've been talking since. So the truth of the matter is, FRSC was set up in 1983 or 86, if I'm correct.
88.
When you started, 88, yeah. You started your career, and I am proud to tell you we are part of the founding members that founded that FRSC during the military regime. You were right on the submission you made that the National Assembly invited you, wanted to crucify you. And of course, the likes of my father defended you in the National Assembly. They used to call him Super Director. He was your very good friend. I'll tell you the name before the end. But when you now became the Honorable Minister for Aviation, there were so many discrepancies in the news. Sarah reporter Showore published some things. I also followed up on some allegations. Now, allegations are not convictions. I mean, the contract awards in the Ministry of Aviation, I think it was Bree and Brew Limited, which, the EFCC invited you to then. I think it was given to one Mr. Obi, and there were so many controversies. However, there was no controversies in FRSC. But one thing is for sure, our electoral system has improved. Professor Omar Mori from the Tales of June 12, who was the CDS, founder of CDS, Center for Democracy Studies under the military regime of IBB, started with what we call the Form A4 papers. Hello, sir.
I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay. All right. But you said our electoral reforms are not that great. I heard about the Ekiti. I'm not Ekiti.
They're great. They're great. I said we've made tremendous progress.
Oh, okay. Okay, yes. That's fine. So how would you like to tell us I think a member of ADC, is it ADC? Yeah, ADC, right?
Not at all. I don't belong to any political party.
Oh, you don't belong. Okay, that's
I
fine.
run
So
a
how,
non-
if you
I
become
run
a
a non-partisan
president?
think tank.
Oh, okay, think tank, very good. So if you become a president, or if you could help the current administration, what would be your contribution as a think tank member? And how would you address this corruption and allegations, not just about yourself then, but generally about politicians or people that have political appointments like yourself? How can you change that narrative? By the way, my name is Dr. Abiodun Bolade. My father was 35 years in transport and he retired in transport. I also did my thesis in transportation management, PhD in transportation management with Professor Oni, Unilag Transport Management. So I am very good in transportation. Currently, I'm even serving under the current administration in transport, but now Blue Economy under Oyetola. I'm one of his advisor in the marine and blue economy. You know, the ministry has been broken down into two. So please help us with that. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, let me deal with the insinuations. It's always good to have opportunity. So you mentioned corruption in Ministry of Aviation, a contract awarded to Bree and Brew Limited. So I awarded that contract for 3 billion naira for airport security, CCTV. So the contract was awarded under some emergency procurement. An American was going to the US and somebody came beside him, an American embassy staff, and injected him with a syringe and ran away. So the guy, everybody screamed. The person that injected him, injected it, left the syringe, took the syringe and ran away. So they now called for the CCTV in the airport. It was Nigeria's major embarrassment. We had no CCTV recording. We had no, all the cameras there were not working. So this was like a few months for me to leave. I reported it to the president and we started this revamping the airport security system. So I awarded the contract for 3 billion. But after the contract went to council and came back, we lost the election. So the contractor tried everything for me to pay him the 30% advance payment that is contractual. I said, no way, I'm not doing that. That we have lost an election, let the new government come and determine whether they want to continue with the project or not. The guy was mad. He was, because I knew him, he felt so bad. He reported me to everybody. He called people to beg me. He offered, I said, I'm not paying. So I did not pay. So when Buhari came, when I left, my permanent secretary took over. He went to Buhari and Buhari approved the 30%. And when he finished the 30%, they had appointed Hadi Sirika as minister. Hadi approved the 65%. So when he had a problem with his subcontractor, they reported him that he used the money to fund my election. Little did they know, little did they realize that it was Buhari that did the payment, that I had left office before the first payment was made. So when I got to EFCC, they said they were looking for me. I came to their office. After they looked at the facts, the guy said, okay, I can't relate to it. This is embarrassing. Because what we heard was that you paid him and he transferred the money to your account. But it's now clear that it was Buhari that paid him and it was Hadi that paid the 65%. And guess what? At the time they were discussing this, the ministry had varied the contract by additional 1 billion. There was a variation because they said there was exchange rate problem. That's why you didn't hear anything again about the case. I neither paid the contractor nor collected any money from him. They said, that the contractor paid, he contributed 2 million naira to my campaign twice, 2 million naira, 4 million naira. The EFCC was embarrassed. I insisted they must give me a letter of clearance and apology because he went out and announced that I paid a contractor and collected this, only to find out that I did not pay the contractor. How is that the work of a security agency? Why couldn't you just be patient and do your work, do due diligence before making an announcement? But at that time, they felt I was critical of Buhari too much and needed to shut me up. So that's the story of Bre and Brew. There was no issue. I don't have any EFCC matter related to Bre and Brew because it was a contract that was paid for by President Buhari, who was then the minister, and then later on by Hadi Sirika. So, to the point, where the government is today is that I think that if I were the president of Nigeria today, I would have broadened my appointments across all the ethnic groups in Nigeria. Our country is a country in constant need of inclusion. Our country is set up it was a mixed match of people by the British. So we have to be deliberate in expanding national inclusion. That would be the advice I would give. But regularly, every week, we publish at the Athena Center website. If you subscribe to our stories, you will see all our reports. One of them was a report we made about how opaque Nigerian universities are. We called it a national embarrassment. No university in Nigeria has on their website their audited accounts, the number of students they have, their internally generated revenue. So we scanned universities in Africa, South Africa, Egypt, Kenya. All of them had their full accounts on their website. Of course, it was the same in Europe and West and Asia. The moment we put that report out, the Minister of Education, God bless his soul, reached out to me and said, Minister, this is a very positive contribution. This is a very positive criticism. I will enforce it immediately. So he asked all universities last year to upload their audited accounts as at May 31st. By May 31st, there was almost 90% compliance. We set up a tracker to track the universities that are complying. So that is the kind of work I do now. We are looking at all the areas of weakness in Nigerian government and sending opinion. We have just finished one on foreign affairs. We'll be publishing it next week or two. It will be interesting how much we are spending in our embassies and what we are getting back as a country. So that is the work of think tanks across the world, helping government in a collaborative manner. We are not critics. We are finding the weaknesses and we are offering solutions. Now, all the universities publish their accounts, and Athena Center sits on the board of the Nigerian University Transparency Board that the minister set up. Again, I now chair the Nigerian Universities NGREN, Research and Education Network, because the minister saw value in the work we are doing. We are saying things can be done better and done well. And so that would be my further advice to the government. But otherwise, if you subscribe to the Athena Center newsletters, you will see our opinion every week on different areas of governance.
Yeah, to the economy. Yeah.
Say that again. Yeah.
Is it better now, Solomon? Oh, wow. Is it okay? Oh, hold on. Oh, hold on.
Okay, whilst we wait for Baron to rejoin, let's take, whilst we wait for Baron to rejoin, what's this? Whilst we wait for Baron to rejoin, what's this? Whilst we wait for No, that was Baron, unfortunately. He sent us into a loop. No, that was Baron, unfortunately. He sent us into a loop. No, that was Baron, unfortunately. He
Okay, I guess they muted me. I said whoever Nigerians elect will be my candidate.
Sorry, Solomon, am I better now?
Yes, that's better.
Yes, it's better.
God. I was. So looking back, were there at your time in office, were there policies you couldn't implement because of political interference, right? Because I want this to like serve as a message to those trying to get into office. Okay, go on. Sir.
Asthma have their own trace like Ogun State, and then merge the VIO, remove the driver's license from the Joint Tax Board. Let there be a state traffic agency that does the work of FRSC for the state, so that all of us can stay in a single data platform. Our offenses, our bookings, different states can have different prices, but let it be similar, so that once you are booked in Ogun, we can see it in Lagos. The people in Lagos can see you committed an offense in Sokoto. They can see this. But I am one of those who think that no federal agency can cover Nigeria. So we need to decentralize this into state agencies. I took it through the National Economic Council, took it through the Federal Executive Council. It was actually passed, but no governor implemented. So that's why I'm shocked that they are talking about state police. The state traffic agencies were agreed to. They didn't do it. State Electoral Commission that all the states have. No other party has won an election in another state. But it's police that you are all interested in owning because they want to own the monopoly of violence in the state. So that was one policy that I wish passed, because I don't think any. How much do you want to grow FRSC? The more you grow it, the more unsustainable it becomes. So I thought that the state government should take over driver's license, make it a local affair. Every local government should have their driver's license office, and people should get it in their locality. But a central national database where everything is anchored, a central offense management system where everything is anchored, so that we can see what everybody is doing. But it didn't happen. Well, it started from me. I don't know what he did during his time, but in my time, we couldn't, we got it. We got it approved, but it couldn't be implemented.
Thank you very much, Mr. Osita. I love your answer. And there's a follow-up question to that, and this is it. Do you think Nigeria rewards competence in public service, or does the system discourage reformers? Like does it pay to be competent? Because I hear people saying things like, it doesn't. Okay, go on. Sorry, go on, sir.
No, okay. He doesn't, because if he does, church will not be inviting you to be the chief launcher at launching, knowing fully well that your salary was X amount when you were minister. So the basic assumption from the church is that you have more money than you were supposed to be paid. It doesn't help, because your community is expecting you to live in a certain way. When you don't, they say, all of the minister, what if all of that? He finished doing minister and he didn't get anything. So the general expectation, nobody compares you to the work you did. They compare you to the outcomes of what they benefited from you or what you benefited from the office. So it's a tough situation in Nigeria. You are muted and we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me, sir? Am I better now?
Okay, yes, you're back. Yes, you're back.
So I said,
You're muted again.
based on everything you've seen in services, Nigeria's economic problem, a policy issue, a leadership failure, or lack of national vision. What exactly is our problem? Is it lack of good policies, zero vision, or is the national problem that we are not facing? I want you to answer that question finally, sir.
I think it's a combination of the three. You listed the three things, because vision without good policies is bound to fail. Good policies without a vision has failed. And then the lack of committed leadership truncates everything. You can have great vision, you can have great policies, and poor implementation will destroy it. So it's a combination of the three. You need to have them in good combination.
And also in Canada, it's still the same thing here. You can actually drive for 1 year while trying to get the main license itself. My questions will be very, very direct to the topic that we have. First of all, for the governance model, do you feel that education would play a very large role in shaping the model that would bring about results in the economy and policies and political landscape of Nigeria? And then secondly, onto the education aspect with the think tank movement that you're doing, there was a recent competition about I think the STEM competition, Olise Olympia STEM competition that occurred recently, where we got to know that Nigeria has been delisted because the Ministry of Education and those responsible were not paying the actual dues for the students to actually go abroad and showcase their talents in the STEM competitions, which a particular individual, Onya, was spearheading that with his own money for the Southeast, which has brought a lot of good outshining for the Southeast. So I wanted to know, is there any plans for you to collaborate with him in that aspect? And do you have any ideas that you could give to the government? Because I feel if Nigerians are properly educated from the grassroots as they are growing up, it actually plays a great role in shaping the future of Nigeria policies.
And I'm happy he's one young man I find great. We talk regularly, and I'm proud of the work he's doing. And I have a number of young people like that doing interesting things, and I support them as much as I can. We've done some programs with him, even at the Athena Center. We've cooperated with his company, and we will keep doing that. Education is key to unlocking the values of this nation. That's why I'm very passionate about education. It is very key. So I believe that both at the federal, state, and local government level, we need a new national vision for education. We need to prioritize education. We need to reduce the number of our out-of-school children. If what the population experts are telling us is true, and I believe them, that in 24 years, Nigeria will be bigger than the rest of West Africa. So we have a serious challenge ahead of us. We currently have it. So we need a new, renewed focus on education. One of my major pet policy push is that we need a single term of 6 years of presidency and governors in Nigeria. These 4 years of re-election, can you imagine the whole of 2026 is gone? The budget of 2025 was not even implemented. because everybody was preparing for 2027. Nothing has been done. No contractor has been paid. Local work not done. And first year of the president, he was setting up government. By 2024, they were having challenges. By 25, we are talking of the next election. So I needed a president that comes to office and has 5 years to deal with anything that he can think of, and not start thinking of amassing the money for the next election, not start thinking of pleasing the people to vote for him in the next election, but he's thinking of where we need to become a developmental state. We need to move away from a distributional state to a developmental state. And I think one of the incentives to do that is the tenure system. This two-term system wastes our almost 3 years, 4 years of these 2 terms are spent trying to get a second term. And then when they come back, they become lame ducks by the second, third year of their government. And then, most of them actually disengage from actual day-to-day governance. So I think that as a country, and the cost of elections are rising, the cost of candidates, of winning primaries, fighting elections. So my argument is that we are spending close to, my rough estimate is that, we are pushing roughly more than 1.7 to 2 trillion every 4 years for elections. INEC is already going to cost us 800 and something billion for this election. From 2015, it has gone from 300 and something million to now 800 and something billion. And you will think that that is a growth, but if you change it to US dollars, it's still the same 600 and something million dollars it costs us every election cycle. So if you put this together, the cost of every 4 years, I'm saying this cost can become, instead of 3 elections in 12 years, we'll have 2 in 12 years. We'll be saving Nigeria almost 2, 3, 4 trillion. The total amount we're spending for education, health in a year's budget, and the budget of the 5 bottom states in Nigeria are not up to 2.5 trillion. So I think that we need to begin to tweak with the structural issues in Nigeria to see if we can create incentives for a developmental state. Now, the country is not in a developmental mode. Everybody just angling for the next position. People are already discussing 2031 election. And, we're not going to do much again over the next 1 year. And then when we come back, the president starts setting up a government again and all of that. And then we have 3 years before we start all hustling again for the next presidential election. So, I don't know, I think we need to press a reset button.
Back at your former ministry, the Ministry of Aviation, because you said something about the CCTV cameras that was projected during your tenure. Looking back and looking at the present state of the Ministry of Aviation right now, what would you say are the discrepancies? Would you say they are moving a bit better now, or they are retrogressing back? Because as you mentioned the CCTV camera, I recall that the present Minister of Aviation put out a video clip of a CCTV on his Twitter. Cameras were in shambles. Like, the video quality was nothing to write home about. There was no tracking on it. You could not see visually the faces in the airport itself. So with that, would you say that they have actually improved on it, or they have actually retrogressed back? And what would you say would be your advice to them on that aspect?
Well, sadly, I don't normally talk about my successors, both at the FRSC and Aviation. So I want to pass on this question.
Okay. No problem. I understand that.
Yes.
Ruthie, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Solomon. So, Mr. Osita, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's always an honor to have you on our show. First, I would like to say that don't take Solomon too seriously when he kept like going at you about Peter Obi. Solomon is literally obsessed with Peter Obi. And so when he was going at you, we knew exactly what he was doing. And I'm happy you didn't fall for it. I chatted him and I said, Solomon, he did not fall for it. So try harder. Okay, so Solomon asked a question, which is what I dropped out. So I don't know if somebody like followed up on the question. And you said your answer was something around like we're waiting for young people to develop their ideas. And I was thinking, this conversation is about forging a new Nigeria and how the young people can have a Nigeria, that they can actually move forward. Mr. Osita, we can't see you. I wonder if you're still there. Okay. So I'm thinking the Nigeria we have now, where we have really weak institutions, and the young people are seeing this. They're seeing that someone can get away with pretty much anything in Nigeria, and then we're thinking of ensuring that these young people find a solution around some of these problems. I wonder how. So I'm just really trying to connect it to having a new Nigeria where we have young people who are seeing that things do not work and nobody's held responsible for anything. How will the new Nigeria really look, with the present crop of young people who are seeing all of these things that are going on in Nigeria, especially in terms of politics?
So your point really is, do we really have hope in the young people? Is that the summary?
So right now to say that, okay, we are going to forge a way forward without, with what we have gotten
Yes.
from the old Nigeria. Yes.
Yes, you have something. I mean, we've kept this country together for 60 years, gone through civil war, gone through testing moments, and yet it's remained one country.
You know what I'm seeing?
Over a country.
Chief, you know what I'm
Yeah.
seeing though is I think part of I guess the demographic that we're referring to, and perhaps Ruthie is still part of this demographic only just. Rather than being sort of a very active, they're either in like WhatsApp prayer groups. They're doing things that don't really affect the narrative, right? They'll be part of initiatives like Fish for Lives and things like this, rather than actually getting involved in things that actually changing the narrative. So, and one of the questions I want to ask you is that how do we support think tanks like yours? Because I think that's a far more meaningful. Saying prayer is bad. I'm not saying prayer is bad. What I'm saying is that let's also support that prayer with meaningful work, right? So think tanks like yours, and what other initiatives do you think the young can participate in? Because I'll certainly, from a personal perspective, I would support that myself, right? What sort of activities and initiatives do you think that young people should be sort of championing?
That's a tough question, really. But the way I look at it, all over the world, the people that changed things were always the minority, never the majority. It wasn't the majority of Europeans that were doing slave trade. It was a small business minority that came to Africa and carried slaves. It wasn't the majority that did things that transformed the world. So, first thing is that this minority, those of you who are interested in public life and public service, amongst my classmates, everybody knew that I wanted a public life. I wanted a public career. I didn't want to work in the banks, which was the order of the day in 1995. Everybody from my class I studied business. So everybody who had a good result went into the banks, insurance. They paid well. But I decided I was going to go to the public sector. That was my choice. And my dream was that I would retire as a permanent secretary someday. That was my only ambition. I wasn't thinking I'd be minister or Marshal or anything. So It's to that point that the minority, the challenge I have is that the active minority who will sequel this conversation, people like you who are here, they need to become more knowledgeable. They need to become, our goal, those of us who have something to offer need to mentor more. That's why we started the Athena Junior Fellows. We took about 14 people. It was 600 people applied. We only could take 14. Senator Anyim have just started a mentorship program. Athena Center is managing it for him. So we're taking about 30 people. And so far, about 400 and something people have applied. So I'm encouraging other state governments. When Nasir El-Rufai was governor, he started the Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship. Lagos State have started the Latif Jakonde Fellowship. What does that do for us? We're taking people that have gone to university and teaching them life skills and political skills, analytical skills that the schools didn't teach them. The challenge in Nigeria today is that our schools are not producing the best. So immediately after school, that's why I think the government is right in rethinking NYSC, but they should go further and rethink it to be able to do like a 1-year retraining of graduates. The government needs to invest more money into it and make people that pass through NYSC almost become the people that employers are looking for. Look, I have a position. I'm looking for an analyst who will manage our political desk and help us do political reports. We've advertised for, this is about the 5th month we've been advertising. We just haven't found anybody who has the skills because we wanted a mid-level career person. So we haven't found anybody who has the skills to do that role. Because when we give them a simple paper to write, just say, write an opinion, because we don't want, there's no AI with us. When you come to our office, you sit in front of our computer. It has no internet. Just type a 1-pager, 2-pager, and then you see trouble. We said we are active AI users in our company, but all the people that work for us have the knowledge to be able to extract value from AI. AI will not give you value if you have no knowledge. So I believe that your generation, those of you who are active, the American Foreign Service exam, if you want to join the State Department, when I finished my graduate school in the US, some of my friends who wanted to go to the Foreign Service, they asked, what should I read to be able to pass the exam? Do you know the answer a foreign staff gave them during a career fair? He said, if you read The Economist magazine for 5 years, if you've been reading it for the past 5 years, you will pass the exam. That the exam has no syllabus. It's going to test your knowledge of the world. So if you have not been reading the magazines like FT or The Economist, then you are not likely to pass the exams. So what does that mean? Preparing young people for leadership, people who are interested, this area I'm interested. I want to leave those who are praying to keep praying. I want to leave those who are looking for what God cannot do to keep looking for it. I want to focus on this 1%. Because at the end of the day in the world, whether it is in a finance, whether it is in president, look, do you know that from time Nigeria started to this day, we have not been up to 1,500 people that have been ministers in this country. From 1960 to date, we've not reached 1,500 Nigerians who have been ministers. So it is a small minority. If you want to take governors, these 36 governors, take it back to 1960 from Akintola them to Okpara them. We've not had up to 500 governors in Nigeria. So it is a small minority that really runs a country. Same thing with the US. They're still talking 47th president in a country 250 years old. So I'm saying that you are enough to cause the change. Because by the time they finish from their prayers, and by the time they finish from their fish groups and all their money building scams to come, you people will have been entrenched and ready to use them as voters. But how do we make the people today to have the knowledge, to be able to have the vision to create the country we are looking forward to? To solve that problem I said at the beginning, a governance infrastructure that is bigger than the manpower available. That is where I want to play strongly. So if I were a governor today, if I were a president today, my focus would be building that generation who will have the skills to build a modern country.
I've been glancing through their tenor, and it's good to even know that you actually have open access. And I actually wanted to start from there. And I noticed one of the key areas that you're actually working on is security. It's good to also hear the fact that as it stands today, and at least from your own experience and your public life, having been in government, you can correct me. It still seems to me more like we don't even have a national policy framework as to the vision of where we are going as a country. And it's sad. Very pathetic. I found us, even in the 17 SDG goals, even though it has just been increased, it used to be 9 or 10 or thereabout. Now it's now 17. The last 3 being about Nat Geo Life. We do not even have anyone working the first 14. Still that bad. Poverty, name it. None. So here's my question. And you have actually talked about this. And I've realized that the problem we have in this country is that we always want to actually champion a minor thing, just we can get the glory. You've given the incident of while we are in FRSC, and do you know truly that what you just mentioned, which should have been a major acceptance and what should have been a kind of a national policy framework, that it would have really helped us? We would have even just replicated the same thing in all other security agencies. Because one of the key issue we have in this country today is that we have agencies in silos that should be working hands in hand. By simply just linking NIMC to the KYC being collected by the banks every 3 days, AK market day, to DSS, to police, biometric of criminals and all of that, FRSC and all of that. Then we can build a data lake structure around it. Then we can refine our policy. The one that has to be repealed, the one that has to be reenacted. Then we can begin to talk about the conversation, okay, where we want to be, as well as security, as well as all other frameworks. Now, here is my question. You gave instance of the FRSC, but states have actually done this because I was practically involved. I did one for Borno State. That was what made them number 3 in being given the JTB access in 2018-2019. But today, I am not sure if that is still working, either at the state or at the national level. And yet we are looking at doing state police and all, like you have said. So where do you think our policy framework get it all wrong? And I mean, even from the National Assembly, talk about both the Senate and House of Rep. Where do we, because I've noticed, I was privileged to be at an event last week where Arise News organized this consensus around police structure and then national security. And it is actually very shocking that all what we're just talking about has been based on individual, how do I put it now? I don't even know what to call it. And it is shocking to imagine that these are the people that actually had the aims of leadership. They can't even convince the people that are actually in the room. It's more or less like we are just talking about problems, no solution, and know how we want to get to where we want to get to. So if I'm to ask you, sir, you are already calling all of us, let's be part of it, because we have minorities that have been deciding for us, so majority should actually be part of it. But how do we get to the calling, or where do we get to where we are going when there is no roadmap? You even see very few that are really trying to be part of this thing, this movement. They don't even have the opportunity. Every attempt that you have been driven by passion to even want to contribute. I'm not going to lie to you, I have frameworks that I've written in 8 chapters of a book, how we can transform Nigeria's security with data structure, with name it. AI, name it technology data driven, sitting down in my computer, looking for an opportunity to even be allowed to submit this. And it's so bad that
Why
many people
don't
are
you
looking
why
at
don't
that
you
you are looking
publish
for
it?
money.
Why don't you publish it? Make it open source. Why do you leave it
What do you
sitting
say?
on your computer? Why don't you
No,
publish it?
I'm already working on I'm already working on publishing, right?
Yeah.
But
I can
sometimes you
get you
also need.
support. I can get you
Okay,
support. Abbey Governor is here. Abbey Governor
okay,
is here. We can get you support through him. So you should look into
okay.
No, well,
publishing it.
he doesn't even need any. He doesn't even need to go far, because if you were on the Athena website, you will see that we do publish regularly
I've
on
seen that, sir. Yeah.
governance insights. We publish things, and sometimes we take guest people. And the more important part is that we don't end with publishing. We then forward it to the relevant people to cause a
Oh, good.
conversation. So
Okay.
we talk with the NSA, we talk with the
Oh,
DGDSS, we
nice
talk
one.
with the IG. So we send our reports to. That's why most of the things we say are moving from just reporting and talking to real action. So that's why
Okay.
we're always careful about what we say. We are not critics of government. We want to be partners. We want policies to move forward. So when we point out a problem, we point a solution. And it would
Okay.
be nice to, but yes, go ahead.
Okay. So it's good that I'll take this further and see to how I can actually make my submission. Maybe I'm being given a kind of weekly task or thereabout or something, and how regularly this post or this submission should actually be made public. I'll be willing to, because I even have it tracked down to a 5-year plan about even going from just framework to even the execution and what we need to do and how it can be tracked. And I mean data-driven database across even the local communities in the entire 774 local government of this nation, and not just handling it in silos. So that's and I really want to appreciate you. Yeah. Okay. 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 So then two.
Question for Chief.
Yeah, the second question is this. Now, somebody had already raised that in regards to what just transpired and which led to them sharing the footage. I was just going to ask a question. Like, how do we even process procurement as against whenever submission of proposals or projects are actually done in any ministry, since you have actually been privileged to be at the federal ends of affair? And because if you look at the footage of that camera, even for a project that was actually quoted at 3 billion, let's just now assume that, okay, it's just maintenance that is being done between that time and now. We shouldn't be having a very poor footage camera as we do have it. And I'm surprised to even hear that there was still a variation just because the man didn't get through with you, since you are no longer in authority, and someone else has to actually do the approval. They still added additional 1 billion to that project. And here we are today. It's still most likely that we might not be able to even get a very good footage of such a project or of whatever incident or scenario at all, should anything even more serious should happen. So I want to ask, what is the process like? Because oftentimes they say there is transparency, there is not procurement act, this, that. You check on the relevant websites, they are not even there. They're not there. I was trying to talk, even the state policy, whatever, framework on the security on both National Assembly for Senate and House. I couldn't see anything. The last time they updated anything was in maybe April or thereabout, and they are not things that are even relevant to what they claim they are doing right now. So I want to ask, what is the process? Because there are a whole lot of things wrong with how we actually frame leadership, how we work. Almost, I don't know.
Yeah. So to your two questions, I will say the nation has had very interesting visions. 2020, 2010, first national development plan, second national, third, fourth, fifth. And what has happened is that our bureaucracy has lost the capacity to produce visions. So we started outsourcing to consultants, and at some point it became an expensive venture. The one of 2010 started when I was a youth corper, 1995-96, and it was done by Accenture, if I was correct. Then after that, under Obasanjo, we tried Vision 2020 to be the top 20, one of the top 20 nations by 2020, and that has not happened. So I don't think it's lack of visioning on some level. It's the lack of see-through. I see people always tell me, why are you always saying this single term? What if we have a bad president for 6 years? I said, yes. If we have a bad president for 6 years, it's still better than a bad president for 8 years. Because Buhari was president for 4 years, destroyed this economy, took this country 30 years back, and still came back a second term. It is tragic, because what it costs to come back is to steal enough money from the same government and control all the institutions and come back. So instead of 8 years of damage, we can have 6 years of damage. Because no president in Nigeria, since Obasanjo, we've never had any focus in terms of a mobilized country heading towards a particular direction. President Jonathan tried it, but he didn't have the charisma of Obasanjo and ability to bring people together. So there was Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, there was people in Jonathan's government, I came in late, and others who pushed an agenda of modernizing the economy. But you see, you needed a president who was strong enough to handle the political battles and then allow the technocrats to fight. So if you remember, when Nasir El-Rufai ran into a problem with National Assembly, Obasanjo wrote them a letter and said, I apologize on his behalf. He took care of the politics and allowed Nasir to demolish all the bad buildings, got back all our parks. Fast forward 20 years later, the parks are gone again. It's been taken back and shared into plots. New buildings are rising in waterlogged areas in Abuja. So that's the tragedy of a country and all these changes we've had. And to the point of your security plan, just know that the country is not having any problem because of lack of security plan. Because if you go to the NSA's website or somewhere, you'll see the NACSET. There has been 3 national strategies, and they are all brilliant. If you ask for the NACSET, and there was another one, 2 national plans we've had, brilliant. Don't ever have the impression that we don't have capacity to think. Inside the NSA's office are some of the brightest officers in Nigeria are pulled together. But there is a fundamental problem of social trust and capacity. At the point of leaving the paper and going into the policy as a problem. In terms of procurement, I don't know about others, but that procurement rules that we had then was actually effective. My special assistant, her name is Janet Adebebo, she's from Ogun State. And I call her my guardian angel because we both worked for ExxonMobil. I was in ExxonMobil when I became Marshal. I was working for Exxon. She was a manager in IT and was leaving Mobil in that 2007. So I said, hey, why don't you join me in the Federal Road Safety? So she was the person behind all the IT innovations you saw at the Federal Road Safety Corps. That I was able to implement the first automated payroll and implement email system built on Outlook, implement all those policies was because of Janet. But that wasn't the only thing she did for me, because in Mobil, we're a process company. We like process a lot. So she was head of the procurement. I made her head of procurement. So when they called me for that case of Brie and Brew, when I had left as minister, I said, what happened with that transaction? She said, Minister, I gave you a folder online. I stored it for you on OneDrive. Go to that folder. All the approvals you granted as Corps Marshal, as minister, is sequenced by date inside that folder. All the documents from BPP, from the president, from all the adverts on every project you're involved in. It's all stored for you in that folder. Anything that is concerning procurement, just go to sleep. You are in the right. And when I was going to EFCC, I just opened that folder, airports project, camera project, everything, the negotiation, the letter to BP, the BPP approval, the Federal Executive Council approval, all the documents were there. She has stored it. Competence is something that I don't play with because they have saved my life. Janet, till today, she still works with me. Since how many years? I have FRSC 13 years. They still work together. And she's from Ogun State. She's Yoruba. I will take her before any other Igbo person. God knows. But she just said to me, anytime you have procurement matter, go to that folder. So every approval I granted, financial approval I granted, even if for 10,000 naira, I have a copy of it. So
Thank you so much.
The idea of procurement in Nigeria is that we fetishize government process. We don't do it to enhance transparency. As I got to the EFCC, I just handed over a file to them. I said, look at all the documents. I didn't pay a dime to this contractor. See how he got the contract. See all the bidders. See the OEM's letter. See the everything BPP asked for. They're here. They were like, wow, they've never seen anybody. And I have, what she has on the folder is the stamped copies. So it's not like my own document. The one that went to BPE, they stamped. That's what she will scan and store. This was in 2012, 2013.
The acknowledged,
copies. The acknowledged copies. From 2007 to 2014, I have folders year by year, FRSC approvals. I have from 2014 to 15, HMA, Minister of Aviation approvals. Every document I wrote approved on is scanned and kept for me.
Wow. Fortunately, Chief, we're in the era where these things can be done electronically now. Fortunately,
exactly. Even easier. So
no,
please, my last question.
No. It hasn't changed because the process of government is still manual. So you still have to scan the physical documents.
Yeah, but
but if you want to keep records, you have to.
But I'm from as far as I'm aware, there is an effort now to try to modernize that process. So this one where if I want to submit a letter in Lagos and I have to go to Lagos to get it stamped for my acknowledgement copy, if I'm doing something with government, that I believe that they're now trying to intervene and modernize that process.
Yes. We had done that. We had done that in FRSC. You could submit documents anywhere, in FRSC office, anywhere. It just enters our system and you will get a mail. You first of all get a text message. That is 2009, saying that the documents you submitted have been received by the Marshal's office. We send you a text. And then after that, you get an email if you have an email. So we had already done that. I don't know why the government
can even go further with can even go further with even developing very simple applications that can actually be entered by any public person, and it will automatically be signed with signature, and it doesn't have any exposure whatsoever. Anyways, so finally,
Emmanuel,
you raised a kind of a challenge.
Emmanuel,
sorry, this is just my last question.
Very quickly, because we've been on it for a long time.
Yeah. So you raised it's more like a challenge to me. I overheard you mentioning this, and if it's possible that I could get more instruction on that, I think I would want to actually help with that. You said something about you are looking for somebody that can help with analysis with political reports, and now I'm willing to even take it back to 1999. I just want to know the key information you'll be needing. Is it related to our elections? Is it related to whatsoever? If I can be given key info, areas of concern you would want, and how data driven you would want this work on, and then how long you would need that to be done for, I wouldn't mind, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Manuel. Let's take Kirex. Kirex, are you there? Okay. Sorry for the delay. The floor is yours.
Yeah, good day, everyone. Good day, Chief.
Good day.
I have had the privilege of following your work for over a decade now, and
Oh, wow.
I was also fortunate to be part of the team that organized the Genesis Tech Hub by Genesis Ignite. I mean, by Genesis Tech
Oh,
Hub,
okay.
initiative
That's
of
really.
Tennessee Holding in Enugu in 2018. Yeah, yeah, where you were one of the speakers. Your presentation that day remains one of the most profound teachings I've ever listened to, honestly. And it was there that I first learned about your principles of Uche, Uchu, and Eguchuku. And those principles
Correct.
have stayed with me ever since. So now my question is, considering today's discussion on nation before politics, rethinking Nigeria's economic and governance model for the next generation. Sorry, my heart is beating so fast because I thought they were going to cut me off after Emmanuel. So I was just furious. Yeah. So how do you see these principles being intentionally embedded into Nigerians' governance, economic institutions, leadership development, like beyond individual transformation, what practical steps can government, educational institutions, and the private sector take to institutionalize these values so they become the foundation for like building the next generation of leaders and a nation where like a nation that truly puts like national interest before politics?
It's tough. Oh. Some years ago, I would have given an answer easily, but now I'm no more sure that I know how that can be done. I'm no more sure. That's part of why, if I'm in public office today, I will give opportunities to young people. I'll look for people in their 30s and I appoint them to the positions. You know why? Because they are at the cusp of their life where they can think boldly. Even if they are mistaken, they will act boldly. At my age, I'm now more likely to be jaded and to think about things in more nuanced manner, thinking of all the sides that can go wrong. So I just like that this conversation is by younger people. I'm hopeful that this topic at the Surge and all the ones you've been having creates the manure for your thoughts to blossom so that some of you can boldly challenge convention. Because what is killing us in Nigeria is that is the way we have been doing it, and we keep doing it, and the way is not taking us anywhere. We need to change it. So, if you ask me, one of the things that this government did that aligned with my own thinking was bringing back our old national anthem. Many of my friends are angry with me. They said, is that the most important thing? We're discussing this and the government is talking old national anthem. Why should we change it? What's wrong with the other one? I said, everything was wrong with it. In 2017, I was the first lecturer at the Obasanjo Presidential Library. And that speech, in fact, I think I will upload that speech to my website so I can direct younger people to it. I questioned the rationale behind changing the national anthem. You see, this national anthem that was written in 1960 was written at the mood of a new nation coming. The authors of the national anthem reflected the fears, the hopes, the aspiration of a new nation. By 1978, we were in the middle of an oil boom, and you are writing a new national anthem. That anthem reflected the challenges of 1978. Arise, O compatriots, our heroes past. But the anthem of 1960 said, though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand. And then the anthem went on to say in the second national anthem, to hand over to our children a banner without stain. And then in the third stanza, it says, O God of all creation, grant this our one request. One request. This is the request in 1960. And I will tell you the genesis of it. That request says, help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed. If you look at today, you may not understand what happened in 1960. In 1956, the minority ethnic groups in Nigeria said they do not want independence. They don't want a Nigeria because they will be oppressed by the majority ethnic groups. As at that time, the Benue people were already fighting against the northern domination. In the east, the Cross River, Ogoja River people were already fighting. In the Midwest, the Beninese and co were already fighting what they called Western domination. So the colonial government set up a Willings Commission. The Willings Commission was to listen to the fears of the minorities. The minority says, don't give independence now. Let us deal with this issue of our fears. We want state creation so that we will be independent in our own states. Then the colonial master said, if we create states now, that means we will postpone the independence. Of course, the major ethnic groups said no. Awolowo, Zik said no. We want independence now. So do you know what Willings then suggested? He said, let us put in the Constitution the fundamental rights enforcement. The right not to be arrested by state, the right to own property, the freedom to do this. All that chapters 36 to 42 of the Constitution, 33 to 42, were a function to give the minorities a sense of belonging, to feel that they will not be oppressed. That's why our anthem said, grant this our one request, help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed. Now, that prayer is why today a Governor Nasir El-Rufai is in detention, and the request of the judge is that he will bring civil servants with property in Maitama and Asokoro, and that you will also bring a civil servant, a traditional ruler in Kaduna to sign, effectively blocking him from exercising those fundamental rights, building a nation where no man is oppressed. And he's not the only one. All the people that go to court these days, the judges will come up with, bring 2 civil servants, bring this. And I wrote a major message about it. This is a negation of the idea of Nigeria. The idea of Nigeria is a state where no man is oppressed. That's why I said, I hope that when people recite this national anthem, that they read the words. The word says, even if our own dear native land, though tribes and tongues differ, in brotherhood we stand. That an Osita Chidoka and a Janet Adepeba will find brotherhood in shared belief in making our country a better place. That is the idea of Nigeria. So it is that our leaders has not framed the idea of Nigeria. I get emotional when I talk about this because the idea of Nigeria is a nation of multiple ethnic groups, that no one will be oppressed in that nation. That is why the chapter 2 of our constitution constitutes the directive principles and objectives of the nation state. So when people ask me about the future, I said the Nigeria that we're living today, our goal is to keep fighting to recreate that Nigeria we wanted at independence. It is not the form of government. It is not parliamentary rule. It is not regionalism. That was not what made Nigeria work in those days. No. Our regionalism created problems. We ended up in a civil war. Our parliamentary system led us to state of emergency in the Western region in 1962. No, that was not what made Nigeria work. Parliamentary system did not work. It was the lessons we learned from 1965 election that we corrected in 1979 constitution. What was the lesson? In 1965, the Eastern region boycotted the federal elections of 1965. The whole of Eastern region did not vote. Parts of Lagos did not vote. Then Tafawa Balewa and Akintola, their people voted. And Akintola approached Zik and said, "You are the president, invite me to form a government." Zik said, "How can I invite you to form a government when a section of the country did not vote?" He said, "Well, the constitution says once I have 166 seats, I will form the government." And we have 166 seats. And truly, he had 166 seats. So after 4 days of an impasse, Zik invited him to form the government. And what did Tafawa Balewa promise? he promised a restructuring of the government, of the country. So in March, that was 1964 election. In March 1965, election was now done in the Eastern region. So what did we do in 1979? We now created a constitution that says, for you to be elected president, you must have majority of the votes, and you must have at least 25% of the vote cast in at least 2/3 of the states in Nigeria, which is these 24 states that we have today in 36. Why did that become important? It became important so that no region of Nigeria can form a government without getting the other parts to get involved. That is the idea of towards a better union. Our goal in Nigeria is to keep working towards that better union. That union of no man will be oppressed as long as you are in Nigeria. We should be that black country where the whole world will look at us and say that we are an example of a successful black nation. That is our dream and our goal. So I'm ending this talk on the positive note that the generation coming after us should strive to make the idea of Nigeria something that we shall all look forward to. It will have its imperfections, it will have its challenges, it will have its issues, but we will know that at the end of the day, the idea of that country where we are all free to aspire to the highest heights, no matter where you come from, that you can come from Otuoke in Bayelsa and become the president of Nigeria. That is the idea of Nigeria. And I want to leave all of you this night with the dream that you should continue to pursue that idea, to build a nation where no man is oppressed. Thank you very much.
No. I think that's the point that we will end on. That's a wonderful point to end on.
Solomon, it's a very important question.
No, Abi, we will have to save it for next time we host Chief. Okay, I think he's done us a very good favor by giving us so much time this evening.
Because it's part of one project he did in port decongestion.
It doesn't matter. Right now, it doesn't matter. I don't want to lose that moment that the platform he's just laid down, I think is where we should end. It's the most appropriate place to end. So Chief, on behalf of the Surge, I'd like to thank you. I would ask that, if there's any way that people can get involved, support your think tank, that would be, that information would be very welcome. So if you can please share that with us,
please,
so that we can socialize.
Subscribe to our newsletters. And every Tuesday and Thursdays, I have a video cast, some kind on ClearPath Media, where I discuss all these issues, and current issues in Nigeria. Every Tuesday and Thursdays on ClearPath Media. And we're also tracking the elections now. So if you want to follow the election matters, watch the ClearPath Media every day. We are giving countdown to May 2029 and all the issues that will probably affect this election and enhance it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much.
This was a wonderful session.
Please, can you all kindly follow Chief Osita? And until next time, we bid him farewell. And hopefully we'll see you soon again, Chief. And for those of you here, please, if you look at the Surge picture, you'll see our next show, which will be next week, on the 19th of July, where we'll be joined by Dr. Yunusa Tanko. So please kindly follow the Surge, follow the moderators, and follow our special guest today. Chief, we bid you farewell and God bless.
Thank you, Chief.